Okay, it's been a while since I've done a podcast, about 4 months or so, and it's back by popular demand. Many subscribers have asked for this to come back, so we're doing another podcast. We're going to do a summer recap. We're going to go through everything on the board. So we're going to start with the FIFA World Cup, big tournament. Geraint Thomas winning the Tour de France. A lot of NHL news, so the Tavares and Pacioretty trades, Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup, and Vegas getting the Stanley Cup final. Liam Kerr getting drafted by the Coyotes, British player going to the NHL. Alistair Cook obviously retiring from Test cricket after this Test match against India. Brilliant career, 33 Test hundreds. Best left-handed batsman ever, fifth greatest batsman of all time. And Jimmy Anderson equaling Glenn McGrath's wicket record for a fast bowler. Cricket story. And finally, the Catalan Dragons winning the Challenge Cup and what that means for Rugby League. Right, so let's begin. The FIFA World Cup this summer in 2018, obviously played in Russia. There was concerns about the tournament and would it be marred by football violence, corruption, all that. It was brilliant. The VAR was the talking point, which was expected, but for the most part, the VAR worked really effectively. There were some incidents in some games where it didn't, and that's bound to happen with a new piece of technology in a sport or a new rule coming in. There's going to be some learning pains. And to be fair, the second highest scoring World Cup final of all time. The highest scoring World Cup finals of all time. Only one goalless game. So there were goals in every game bar one, which says something. The most goals from penalties, free kicks, and set plays or corners. It wasn't the highest quality football, but it was the highest entertainment quality. It was quality entertainment, but not the quality in the sense of the actual style of play. But there was some really entertaining matches. The quality wasn't necessarily, but the entertainment value and the enjoyment was there. As a neutral, brilliant. As a fan of one of the countries, maybe not so much. Spain and Portugal flattering to deceive the South American countries, not winning. Neymar proving that he's a histrionic crybaby. Ronaldo and Messi underwhelming. We could go on about the teams that failed, the nations that failed to really live up to expectations, the players that failed to live up to expectations. England's surprise run to the semi-final, the French and the Croatians giving us a brilliant final, and some great goals scored. There were some brilliant goals scored. There was some shoddy defending, primarily by the Argentinians at times. And some players didn't live up to the expectations that we had. Neymar, Messi and Ronaldo, great club players. You put them on the international scene, they seem to fall a bit flat. But there we go. But the World Cup itself, it was a brilliant tournament. Played in very hot, very humid conditions, and it was hot out there. Hottest summer we've had on record, so I'm not surprised by that. Very little rain. The team that adapted best to the travel and the heat were more successful. Simple. Not long after that, Geraint Thomas won the Tour de France. With all the Chris Froome controversy and the negative press surrounding Team Sky and in the build-up and some of the stories that have come out and would Chris Froome be banned or should he get banned, all that palaver. I'm not a Chris Froome fan, but I felt that the UCI have mishandled it, Team Sky have mishandled it, and the rider of every party's mishandled it. Unfortunately, the only downside is Geraint Thomas rides for Team Sky. If Geraint Thomas rode for any other team, people would probably be even more positive about this Tour de France win. He may never win a Grand Tour again, but he's the third British rider to win the Tour de France now. All three have ridden for Team Sky. Team Sky have dominated most of the last decade of cycling. There are some questions about Team Sky, but there's some questions about other teams as well. No professional cycling team is immune from suspicion of cheating. It's a problem. But Geraint Thomas really showed some grit and determination. And the Yates brothers, again, some other good young British cyclists that are coming through right now. So there's a good talent pool. And part of the reason for that was Bradley Wiggins and Sir Chris Hoy doing what they did on the track and on the road. So, but finally, British cycling, we're starting to get a lot of tour wins. The debate is still out on Chris Froome and Team Sky. There are issues within the sport, the UCI, the TUE exemption rule, teams themselves, because it's not just Team Sky that have issues. There's plenty of teams that have issues. It just so happens Team Sky are on the top table, and people want to knock them off. But it was the same with Lance Armstrong, with US Postal and Columbia, and other riders. Festina. People forget the Festina scandal in '98, where the whole team were basically found to be doped. So, as a sport, it's got a long way to go to rebuild the trust, and if it doesn't, there are issues long term with sponsorship, TV deals, and fan retention. But that's an issue unto itself. But for him, it's a great win at a time when the sport needs a new winner. Whether if he rode for another team, that might have possibly been a better outcome. But we'll leave that debate as it is. But 3 British cyclists in a decade winning the Tour de France, that says something about the depth of British cycling. The fact the sports goes issue about doping, we'll leave that there. The Tavares and Pacioretty trades. Now, Tavares going to the Maple Leafs. Almost at one point, every team was interested in signature. Even the Islanders. All 31 teams in the NHL wanted to get pen to paper with that player. It came down literally to will he, won't he, and then he ended up in Toronto. The city's from, the team he supports. It's a boyhood dream to play for your hometown team in any sport, and for a Canadian from Toronto to play for the Maple Leafs, it's a big thing. It's a massive thing. It just blew up the internet. It's still blowing up the internet now on my YouTube. I get a lot of people viewing that video. Max Pacioretty's gone today, and that's blown up the internet as well. It's continuing to blow up the internet, depending on the Montreal Canadiens have completely mishandled the whole situation. I really do believe that. I believe that Vegas have got a win out of this. The Thomas Tatar going the other way, it's a cap dump. Let's be honest. George McPhee's worked that masterfully. Mark Bergevin hasn't. Simple. So if you're an NHL fan or a hockey fan, those 2 trades this summer, a couple months apart, could that mean Erik Karlsson will get moved from the Ottawa Senators? We shall see. But Max Pacioretty's now just signed a 4-year extension. So that in itself is interesting. Vegas could sign him up to 7 years, and they're giving him 4 years. So that says something about where Vegas. I think there's a win now mentality with them. He's only a few months older than me. He's only 29. I'm 28. So he's not actually as old as people think. Tavares is about the same age as me as well. So these are both of the same. They're contemporary players, if you know what I mean. They're both coming through at the same time. Both want to win the Stanley Cup. Both have gone to teams that have a chance of winning the Stanley Cup this year. So that's really interesting. Guy, what about the Stanley Cup? The Washington Capitals winning their first Stanley Cup after many years of trying and failing. Against the Vegas Golden Knights, where Pacioretty's now gone. Vegas did miracles last year. Washington pulled off a miracle as well. When people were saying they looked weaker, they had lost some of their depth. Was Ovechkin the problem? Was the depth the problem? They proved everyone wrong. Holtby pulled it out the bag, and in goal, in net, and they go on to win the first Stanley Cup in the franchise's history. They may never win it again in our lifetime. They may never win it again as a franchise, but they've got it. They've got their name on that cup. There's been times when the Washington Capitals team has been absolutely abysmal. But they've now got over the hump. They've got to their second Stanley Cup final. They got there in '98 and lost. They got there again. They won, and they won well. 4-1 in the 7-game series. They found a way to win, and they weren't the best team in the regular season, not by a long shot. Grubauer had a great run in the end of the season, and then in the playoffs he just had a meltdown. So Holtby came back in and then didn't have a meltdown. But they didn't have the best regular season. There were teams that were better than them, but they found a way to win in knockout playoff hockey. So they deserved to win that Stanley Cup. They really did. And Ovechkin deserved to win that Stanley Cup. Could they repeat? Possibly. Nothing's improbable. After how unpredictable last year was in all sports, nothing's improbable here. The final NHL story that I'll go is Liam Kirk of Great Britain getting drafted by the Arizona Coyotes in the 7th round, 189th overall. Big news for British ice hockey, considering how much growth the sport has had in the last few years, and how far it's come in the 25 years since we last were at the top table of world ice hockey. the World Championships. Big story. Whether he actually plays any games in the NHL, open to debate. Completely open to debate whether he actually plays any games at the top level. But he's got a good career ahead of him. He was drafted later than expected. People were expecting him to go in the 3rd to 5th rounds. He went in the 7th, so a lot of teams passed on him. Arizona probably have a steal here, and he could play in the NHL. It all depends how he develops, but size is an issue. Size, he's a bit on the small side. But he's quick. He's got quick hands, quick feet. He's very nimble. But size, it's just down to size. When he was playing in the Elite League and in the old English Premier League ice hockey, he was playing against big men. And he was playing against men when he was 15, 16 years old. So he can take that experience and say, look, I've played against, ex-NHL players in the Elite League. I've played against, other top-level professionals who've then, gone as import players to the British leagues. And I've come out and I'm not dead. But the NHL is that little bit faster, a little bit more physical. The players are that little bit, more intense. But that is a big story. Big story for British ice hockey and the growth of the sport in this country. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the odd call-up game in the NHL and plays a handful. But it's still a stepping stone for the development of the sport in the UK. And there are other players in the pipeline. Liam Kirk is not going to be the last. There are other players. Ben O'Connor's playing now in the Swedish Hockey League, and he could possibly get drafted. There's a few others in the pipeline. And Sheffield's a hotbed, but so is Nottingham. So is Cardiff. So is Manchester. Guildford have now got a team in the Elite League. And there are some Bracknell Bees players on my team. They're on two-way contracts that have been called up to the Coventry Blaze. So there's a lot of young British players suddenly getting opportunities, and the Elite League is getting more competitive and has grown massively. And unfortunately, the Edinburgh Capitals have failed, but there will probably be another Elite League expansion at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if it hits 14 or 16 teams soon, and there are a few teams in the National League setup that could quite easily make that step up. It's just all about finances, really, but they could make that step up to that next level. So there we go. Now let's go on to cricket quickly. Obviously, Alistair Cook has announced his retirement. I've done a video on that. He just got his 33rd and final century today. Played brilliantly for England today in the 4th day of the final test. Best left-handed batsman of all time, 5th best batsman overall of all time. He's just passed Kumar Sangakkara. He's been a brilliant ambassador for the sport for 12 solid years. And to be fair, he could have possibly played Test cricket a bit longer had he, just taken some time out and focused on his game when it was going tough about 18 months to 2 years ago. But he decided to just, soldier through it, and the selectors just kept selecting him, which may or may not have caused this retirement at this stage. But he did play 160 consecutive tests, which no one has ever done before, so that's insane. One of only 2 players to get a 50 in his first test match and last test match, and one of only 5 players to get centuries in their first and last. So he got a 50 in his first innings of his first test, and he got a 50 in his first innings of his last test. Only one other player's done that, and of course in the second innings he got a century, which only 4 other players or 5 other players have done or something. So he's broken some records there. Jimmy Anderson also equalled Glenn McGrath's wicket record today, and he's going to break that. If not in this test match, in the series against Sri Lanka, he will break that record. And he might have another year left in him, so he could get another 10, 50, 100 wickets. We don't know, but it depends on Jimmy Anderson and when he feels it's right to retire. So that's 2 record breakers for England there. And yeah, Glenn McGrath is a fast bowler. He will not get Muralitharan's record of 800 test wickets. That will stand for a very long time, if not permanently, because I don't see any spinners right now who are of the same level, and I don't see any fast bowlers taking wickets like there's no tomorrow at the moment. So we've got 2 world-class players who are nearing the end of their cricketing careers, both at test level and at first-class level. So there we go on that. That's some really interesting stuff there. Now finally, the Catalan Dragons winning the Challenge Cup. Rugby League. First non-English team to do it, first French team to do it. I did a video on this as well. It wasn't the highest quality match. The second half was just a mess of poor possession, mistakes, and really basic errors. But it was highly entertaining. The Catalan Dragons and Toulouse as well, who were another team who've got some coverage in the Challenge Cup. in years past, beating Widnes famously about 12 years ago. They also play in the Super League system. There's a few French teams that play in the Super League system. Toulouse and Catalan are the two big ones. PSG have had their own Super League team at one point. It didn't go very well, but they did have a team at one point. This is a good move for European Rugby League. The NRL, in my eyes, is far ahead in quality and talent level and skill level and just further ahead. Last year during the Rugby League World Cup, I argued that the gap was widening because the NRL-based players seemed to be far more prepared for the conditions, far more physically, up for it, better skill level, and I did say there was a gap there. I believe that some of the English players in that England squad could play in the NRL. Jermaine McGilvery, for example, could quite easily play for any NRL side, hands down. Catalan's win, though, says to me that Rugby League needs to expand outside the north of England more. Now, we've got the Toronto Wolfpack, we've got Catalan, we've got Toulouse. These are three teams that I can name that don't play in England. The Super League and the Rugby League structures need to try and encourage more professional teams. We've got the London Broncos and the London Scholars. They're the two London teams that I can really think of. The London Broncos play in the Championship, the London Scholars play in the division below. They're not at Super League level. Broncos used to be and the Scholars used to be in the Championship. They've both hit hard at times. The Broncos look like they're on the right track to possibly getting back into Super League, but it's whether they can get in and stay there. Super League needs to move outside of its traditional heartlands, otherwise it will always play second fiddle to rugby union. If British ice hockey in the Elite League can now get teams across the country and across all four, constituent parts of the UK, Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland and England, and has been doing that consistently, whatever the level of the top level is, be it the Super League era or the Elite League, the British National League or the English Premier League ice hockey, having it cover the length of the land. Why can't Rugby League have its top level cover England, Wales, Scotland? Why can't it grow outside of Cheshire, Lancashire and Yorkshire? Because that is actually harming the sport than helping it. Also, the TV rights is another issue, and where does the Challenge Cup get played? There's been discussions about Wembley. Is it the right venue? They've got another 6, 7, 8 years under contract at Wembley. And with what's going on with Wembley, the possible sale or not sale, we could discuss that. But their win was a great moment for Rugby League. It's like if the New Zealand Warriors win the NRL Grand Final. Because they haven't done that yet themselves. When they do that, that's when that moment when the sport is growing. If they can defend that next year, that'd be even better. If they can win the Super League Grand Final and cap it off, that would be, and at some point in the next few years, that would be brilliant. Considering where the team was last year to where they've come now, it is a real rags to riches story of almost getting relegated out of the Super League and being a failure. 15 years in the making. They've had 2 Challenge Cup finals. They've won one of them. Very much like the Washington Capitals having 2 Stanley Cup finals, winning one and losing one. The Catalan Dragons have done something that is positive. They are a merger of 2 clubs in the southwest of France, and this is a hotbed of rugby league in France that stood up to the Vichy fascist regime of the 40s and the Nazis. When the Nazis and the fascists tried to ban it, they gave the 2 fingers. So historically, this is a very important win as well, because the French authorities that were under Vichy France, under Marshal Pétain, tried to ban and did ban rugby league and said it's against the law to play. And anyone caught playing could be arrested, deported, whatever, face harsh penalties. So it became a resistance thing as well. So rugby league is very, very important in southwestern France, French culture. They could also grow it across France as well and raise the level. But seeing how those French players played, the French players in the Catalan side, it was brilliant to see. Seeing how the whole team played was brilliant to see. But there we go. There is my podcast episode 9, a summer recap. Here's some of the big stories that have happened that I have covered or will be covering, over the next few days. I will be covering the Alistair Cook, Jimmy Anderson tomorrow after the Test match is over. Great achievement by both players to achieve what they've achieved in the sport. But yeah, I've covered most of these stories. and that's an ongoing one. So thank you very much for watching this podcast. It has been a while since I've done one. Apologies. Please stay tuned for more videos over the next few days. Some of them will be on some of these topics, some on some new topics. It's been, an great, great little podcast. Thank you very much for sticking for the basically 20 minutes. If you want to watch any more of my videos, please like and subscribe. That's kind of important. Place your comments below, and I'll have some more videos for you soon.